Hello, this is Mark Pfister. This is Auticon 2020's Mindsets for Autistic Success. What is a mindset? A mindset, according to vocabulary.com, is a habitual or characteristic mental attitude that determines how you will interpret and respond to situations. Now, I depict a mindset here as a set of assumptions, beliefs, attitudes, and values, each of which are characteristic of a particular mindset. Now, the 400% effect. This is stolen from the video at the bottom of your screen, but it's so awesome I need to repeat it here. So you have some behavior that leads to a result, and let's go ahead and say that that result is not the result you're looking for, but rather you're looking for some better result, depicted here in green. Now then, you can attempt to get the new result by altering your behavior, but often habit and other reasons result in that behavior not changing. Sometimes changing your behavior is just plain hard. And so let's say that the effectiveness of attempting this behavior change is about a 1x effectiveness. There is a better way, and that better way is by changing one's mindset. Why? Because mindset yields a particular behavior, which yields a particular result. A study shows, and that's detailed in the video, that if you start with mindset and behavior, you'll get a 4x multiplier. That is, it'll be about 400% more effective to result in the change you're looking for than if you try to change just behavior alone. Now, this diagram is a way to model autism. If you haven't seen it before, absolutely check it out. Go ahead and Google Understanding Autism Cartoon. It's phenomenal. So the visualization of what autism is as a series of dots representing more ability or fewer abilities is the best way to think about autism as a spectrum as depicted here. And of course, since mindsets lead to behaviors, if our intent is to improve behaviors, what mindsets can we use to do so? Let's explore. Let's first talk about the growth mindset. Now, where does the growth mindset come from? Dr. Carol S. Dweck wrote about the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, two mindsets that are on opposite sides of a continuum, in this book. Truly a phenomenal book, over 2 million copies in print, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. She describes how the growth mindset can help us learn to fulfill our potential. Now, what kind of mindset do you have? If you have a growth mindset, then you feel that you can learn anything you want to. When you're frustrated, you keep on trucking. You feel that you want to challenge yourself. If you fail, which you might often, you learn from those failures and then you move on. In fact, you may not even know the word failure. You might consider it to be a learning opportunity. Instead of saying, I failed, please just tell me that I tried hard. And if you succeed, I'm inspired. If I succeed, you're inspired. Your effort and attitude determine everything with the growth mindset. In the fixed mindset, either you're good at something or you're not. It's almost as if the sum total of your abilities were inborn in you. And so if you're not a great artist, it's because you were born that way. When you're frustrated, you give up. You don't like to be challenged. And when you fail, you just realize, that's just not something I was born to do anyway. You like to be told that you're smart. And if you succeed, you feel great. If I succeed, you feel threatened. You feel that your abilities determine everything. I'd like to read this quote. The comfort zone is the great enemy to creativity. Moving beyond it necessitates intuition, which in turn configures new perspectives and conquers fears. So the comfort zone here, you feel safe and in control. If you move beyond your comfort zone, you feel fear. You provide excuses. It's especially true with the fixed mindset. However, if you move beyond the fear zone where the fixed mindset lies, you end up in the learning zone where you deal with challenges and problems. You can acquire new skills, and that comfort zone can now live beyond the place where it was. You might need to feel fear again in order to proceed to the growth zone, but in the growth zone, the growth mindset realizes its purpose. You can live your dreams, set new goals, and conquer objectives. Now let's depict the two mindsets on a continuum. A continuum from only inborn abilities to abilities that are inborn and changeable. Where are you? Now keep in mind that you can change over time. In one moment, you might feel a bit more down here. In another moment, you're feeling awesome and like you're growing. Additionally, you might feel differently depending on what kind of ability we're talking. Artistic ability, perhaps. Either you're just awesome and you're growing, or you feel that I just can't do art. And I was just born that way. And so maybe with art you feel down here, but maybe with intelligence you're like, nah, intelligence isn't the same way. Intelligence is absolutely changeable because I have proof. I've learned a ton, and I'm way more intelligent than I was. So you might be further up here. But the point is that growth and fixed is a continuum. And further, you might travel along this continuum and never be in really one place. Now let's talk about another mindset. The outward mindset. To properly understand the outward mindset, let's consider two individuals. An individual who, makes things easier for others, and an individual who makes things harder for others. Let's explore their beliefs. That is, their mindsets. So a person who makes things easier for others believes that others matter, like I do. They believe that other people have goals, needs, and concerns just like I do. Now, on the other hand, people who make things harder believe that others don't matter like I matter. And they don't much take into consideration others' goals, needs, and concerns. Now let's talk for a moment about behaviors. What does the behavior of a person look like with an outward mindset? And what is the behavior of a person with an inward mindset? Well, the one who has an outward mindset does things such that their goals, needs, and concerns take others into account. And thus, you could say that the direction is outward. However, a person with the inward mindset behaves as saying, my goals, needs, and concerns are self-focused. This doesn't necessarily mean the person is selfish, but without taking others' needs, goals, and concerns into consideration, one could in fact say that they have a bit of a self-focused mindset. And so the direction here is inward. Let's talk now about outcomes. What are the outcomes of having each mindset? Well, with the outward mindset, you have sight. That is, you have awareness. What's going on around you? Whereas with the inward mindset, there's blindness to others. With the outward mindset, it's a very collaborative way to work. If I could spell collaborative. Whereas with the inward mindset, it's a very siloed way to work. With the outward mindset, very high accountability. And the inward mindset is high blame. If my goals don't work out, if I don't meet them, I can blame somebody else. They weren't engaged with me. They weren't collaborating. What about innovation? Well, if you have collaboration, you have a higher chance of innovating, idea generating, and so on. Whereas there tends to be a kind of stuckness to the inward mindset. It's not really a word, but it's just a feeling of being stuck. The outcome of high engagement versus low morale. And the final result is growth. Going back to the growth mindset, the outward mindset is paired with the growth mindset, because one of the outcomes of having an outward mindset is in fact growth in yourself and others. Whereas with the inward mindset, the outcome is reputation. If I meet my goals, I'll likely have a better reputation. If I don't meet my goals, well, there's always blame. All right, let's put it all together. The growth, the fixed mindset, the inward and the outward mindset. It looks a little like this. So on the axis that's horizontal here, we have visibility. What am I able to see? What am I able to be aware of? If I am using the outward mindset, I'm aware that others' lives matter too. If I'm currently in the inward mindset, I don't see others. I see that my life matters. The life of those I care about matter. The question of the day is, how do I get that visibility? How do I see better? Let's go back for a moment. How do I achieve that awareness? That's the subject of yet another pair of mindsets. So moving on then, let's talk about the mindful mindset. Mindful, where does this term come from? Well, it was coined originally by a man who was a Buddhist monk, T.W. Rhys Davids, at the dawn of the 20th century. However, it was picked up and popularized by Jon Kabat-Zinn when he formulated the mindfulness-based stress reduction course. And you can find quite a few resources on the net about mindfulness. The book that I like is The Mindful Geek. It's an extremely logical approach. It's a secular approach, meaning that there's not a Buddhist approach to it. There's not a religious or spiritual element. It's all evidence-based. There's a lot of research in it. And Mr. Taft actually teaches you to meditate via an algorithm. To properly understand mindfulness, specifically the mindful mindset versus the autopilot mindset, let's turn back to the core definition of a mindset and from whence we get behaviors and results. So let's depict this in a slightly different way. Let's say that from mindset you end up with choices. You make those choices. And from choices you have behaviors. And from behaviors you end up with results. And of course, from results you end up with outcomes. Now, the mindful mindset, let's place on the left. The autopilot on the right. What's true about the autopilot mindset is that quite often you might end up generating a habit. How do you do that? Well, it's through repetition of choices and behaviors. Let's depict that via a cycle. With repetition, you end up with a habit. And autopilot leverages habits to generate outcomes, whereas the mindful mindset does not. In the mindful mindset, the only possibility is a choice. Now, how do you go from mindful to autopilot and vice versa? That too is a choice. So it's true that autopilot mode, you can make choices in autopilot mode, but let's call it a thin line. Let's say that it's maybe a little less likely than leveraging habits. So we walk by habit, we talk by habit, we go to the coffee pot by habit. We do so much by habit. We blink, we sit down, and so on by habit. And yes, we make choices, but much of life is done via these learned, repetitive choices and behaviors, which become ingrained as patterns in our behavior. And so, with the autopilot mode of behavior, then, habits are leveraged. Whereas, when you're in the mindful mindset, your awareness is so broad, your state of mind so present, what you notice is complete. The only possibility is choice in the mindful mindset. Now let's incorporate the mindful and autopilot mindsets back into our diagram. Where do they belong? Well, if you think about mindfulness, what does it do? Let's imagine for a moment that your current location is here. Mindfulness tends to make your dot move this direction, in an outward direction. Whereas autopilot tends to make that dot either static or move into an inward direction. Now, I like to call this quadrant the outgrowth quadrant. And in fact, you could rename this quadrant to the outgrowth mindset quadrant. Now let's be a little less theoretical, a little more practical. Let's actually get into the meat of it. Provide you a tip that you can take away and practice today. Go ahead and Google outgrowth mindset listen, where you'll learn how to listen using the HEAR method. HEAR, which is an acronym meaning halt, engage, anticipate learning, and reflect. Where reflect is actually two things. One, it's reflecting in the moment. What did the person say? What did the person mean? And two, reflecting later. So go ahead, pause the video, and check it out. Welcome back. Let's wrap it up. So, keeping in mind that mindsets beget behaviors. From your mindset, that will determine what your possible range of behaviors are. And so if you'd like to change your behaviors, perhaps you're not as high as where you want to be in here. Change your mindset. Well, which mindsets map to which behaviors? Is it like that? Is it like this? Well, let's go ahead and draw some lines. With language, let's leverage the growth mindset and the outward mindset in order to listen, understand, speak, write, read, interpret body language, and so on. With motor skills, let's also adopt a growth mindset. With perception, let's adopt an outward mindset. And with all of them, let's adopt a mindful mindset. Now, you won't be able to achieve success perhaps with mindsets alone. You might need some tools, perhaps a software tool. You might need some accommodation. In conclusion, I sincerely hope you make the bold decision to adopt these mindsets. After all, it was Buzz Lightyear who said, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to infinity. Actually, he didn't say that. He said, to infinity and beyond. And with that, I appreciate your kind attention. And please email your questions to mark.pfister@auticon.us. And this concludes my talk. However, there is a little bit of a commercial here. I do need to invite you to email info@auticon.us if you're interested in a software technology career. Thanks, and have a great AuTCon 2020.